Welcome back, everyone. This is the 8th in a series of tips from the In the Field section of my new book, The AMC Guide to Outdoor Digital Photography. And today's tip is shoot sharp. Now, there's nothing more distracting in an image than a blurry subject, unless of course you're going for that motion look or some sort of abstract shot. And today I'm going to tell you several techniques that will help ensure that you don't get camera shake, which will result in blurry images. Now first, if you're shooting handheld with a wide angle lens and you're shooting adventure shots, make sure you're doing things like shooting at 1/60th of a second or faster. I typically like to get 1/125th of a second or faster. 1/200th, 500th will really ensure you get sharp images. The other thing you should do is to use your continuous focus mode or servo focus mode, depending on what kind of camera you have, and lock in a focus point on your subject as it's moving, and that'll make sure that you're getting things in focus while you're shooting. Also, you can do things like brace your arms against your body, lean up against a tree or a rock, or even get down on the ground to help support your body and your camera to eliminate camera shake. Now, hand-holding your camera is fine whenever you're shooting action shots, street scenes with shorter focal lengths, and you need that flexibility of being able to move around quickly. But whenever you use longer lenses, heavier lenses, or you're shooting landscape work, I really recommend using a tripod. I know I'm often shooting at f/16, f/11 with my landscapes and in low light situations, which means I'm using a really slow shutter speed. And even if I get up to 1/30th of a second, I have a hard time hand holding that and getting a sharp image, especially if I want to make big prints. So I really recommend using a tripod. And the other thing that using a tripod does, it lets you slow down and study your composition. You can look at it on the LCD and really look for those distractions on the edges and make sure your composition is the way you like it. So I recommend that use of a tripod as well. So what kind of tripod do you get? Well, the biggest, heaviest tripod is going to do the most to dampen those camera vibrations. Wooden tripods, aluminum tripods are really heavy and do a really good job at that. Unfortunately, they're not necessarily practical when you're traveling long distances in the woods or hiking up in the mountains, which is why I like to use carbon fiber tripods. I'm a big fan of the Gitzo carbon fiber tripods. Other popular and good brands that nature photographers like to use are made by Really Right Stuff and Faisal. And a couple things I look for in a carbon fiber tripod is I want it to extend up high enough where I can look through it without having to stoop down. So this goes up to my eye level. So I'm always looking for that. It just gives me, different heights I can create my compositions with, as well as eliminates the need to stoop over like this and get a bad back. I don't want that. I also usually don't use a center column on my tripod. Sometimes I do, but when I'm out shooting landscape work, I tend to not use a center column for a couple of reasons. One, this allows me to get the camera really low to the ground. I can get this one down about this far on the ground, which really lets me get that unique perspective that I couldn't get with the center post there. Also, that center post adds another sort of area of vulnerability where the camera can shake a little bit. It's a little looser in the tripod, and if you ever crank it up, then you've pretty much lost the effect of having the balance of three legs. You've got just one leg balanced on top of three, and you don't get the same sort of stability. So I recommend against using a center column for that reason. If you do have one, keep it down without extending it up, and get one with a little hook on the bottom so you can hang your camera bag or something like that off the bottom to add some stability there. On top of your tripod legs, you need to have a tripod head. Now, panning and tilting heads are sort of the traditional style, but ball heads have become really popular over the last 30 years, and for nature photography, they're great. I love them. This is a Kirk BH1 ball head. I've used this for over 15 years. Again, Really Right Stuff and Faisal make great ball heads as well. Whichever ball head you get, you want to make sure you have one that can support your heaviest camera lens combination without drooping down or anything like that in the middle of your exposure. And you want one that has an Arca Swiss style mounting plate. And this is called a quick release system that lets you get your camera on your tripod in a moment and start shooting without having to fiddle with getting the camera on there on the tripod head itself. And that Arca Swiss style mount works great and gives great stability. Several companies, including Kirk, create these mounts with L brackets as well, so the camera can be mounted vertically or horizontally. So if you can get one of those, that gives you even better stability when you're shooting in vertical mode. In addition, I like to trigger the shutter remotely. So I use a cable release. You can also use a wireless trigger device, and in a pinch you can use the self timer on your camera. Anything to eliminate you actually pressing this shutter button, because that can add a little camera shake to the camera and cause some blur in the photo. So anything to remotely trip the shutter will help keep your images sharper. Also use the mirror lockup mode or live view mode if you're using a DSLR. What that does, it puts the mirror up so it doesn't have to flip up when you press the shutter. You can hear this, that sort of clicking sound. That's not the shutter, that's the mirror flipping up, and that can actually cause some vibration in the camera and actually cause a little bit of blur at certain shutter speeds. So now I've got it in live view mode, which locks that mirror up, and you see you don't hear that loud clicking noise. So that'll help give you sharp images as well. Okay, so that's this week's tip. Shoot sharp. Go borrow a tripod if you've never used one. I think you'll find your images look a lot nicer. For more tips and to learn about my book, The AMC Guide to Outdoor Digital Photography, visit monkmanphoto.com.